Greetings and thank you for watching. Today is the day before the beginning of the summer break here at the University of Guadalajara and in all educational institutions in general in Mexico. I'm looking forward to it, of course, although it still lies a little bit over 12 hours in the future. Does it exist? Well, most would say no. The future is undetermined, some might say. How about what happened yesterday, or last week, or 20 years ago? Does it exist? Again, most would say no. If you answer in the negative, you are a presentist, someone who believes that only the present exists. It might surprise you, though, that this does not seem to be the answer we get from relativistic physics. Although this remains controversial, it seems that the answer we get there is affirmative. The past and the future both exist as physically and objectively as the present does. This view is known as eternalism, or less mysteriously, the block universe theory of time. All of this is part of the metaphysics of time, the systematic reflection on the existence and nature of time. Another theme in this metaphysics is whether time has a direction, on which this classical book is mandatory reading. This is Hans Reichenbach's 1956, The Direction of Time. It was published posthumously by his wife, Maria Reichenbach, in several editions. The first edition was by the Regents of the University of California, and this is the renewed edition by Dover Publications, but is pretty much the same book. It's a wonderful book. Again, highly recommended if you are interested in this particular topic within the metaphysics of time. It gets progressively more technical and more difficult to read. But the first chapter is only 17 pages long, and it's a wonderful, very friendly introduction to the topic. And it begins like this. I quote, "The problem of time has always baffled the human mind." Indeed. And in this chapter, he mentions very, very quickly, very briefly, several names that are relevant to the history of this topic, including Thales of Miletus, Heraclitus, Parmenides, Zeno, Galileo, Newton, of course, Kant, of course, who believed that time was purely, and space were purely subjective, Einstein, of course, Bergson, Minkowski, and others. Now, part one is largely introductory, but in part two, he shows that how events can be ordered in time, even using the time reversal invariant laws of classical and relativistic mechanics. Specifically, he says that there is no such thing as the direction of time in these mechanics, including relativistic mechanics. For example, in the on page 41, he shows this figure, right, which is a light cone. It's a way of representing graphically the time order in an Einstein-Minkowski world. And basically what he says is that if we invert these two, That is to say, and I quote on page 42, describing the world in negative time, that is interchanging the cones of past and future in figure 8, makes no difference for the laws that are laid down in the theory of relativity. This is shown by reference to the Lorentz transformations, end quote. And here he shows the Lorentz transformations, which basically state that length, mass, and time change with movement, physically, not subjectively, physically. So in part 3, he turns to thermodynamics and to ask whether here there is such a thing as a direction of time. And his answer is a very highly qualified yes. Despite the title, he did not believe there was such a thing as the direction of time, globally speaking. Well, actually, in relativistic mechanics, there is no such thing as time as a whole, as a global entity. There are only local times that differ physically from one framework, inertial frame, to another. So on page 127, about halfway the book, he says the following. He concludes that we can, and I quote, we cannot speak of a direction for time as a whole. Only certain sections of time have directions, and these directions are not the same. Of course, he's talking about here entropy, which is a very important concept in thermodynamic, statistical thermodynamics. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to leave any messages or any questions or commentaries. And be well and take care.